Hello everyone. The sun's down a little bit, not quite below the trees, so I've got some light on my face. It's been a warm day. I think it got close to 80, maybe 78 or 9. It's nice this time of year. We're in November and yet it's warm. That's going to change soon, but right now it's warm. I really don't need this on. This is just because there's a small breeze and I don't have to worry about maybe the temperature dropping a few degrees while I'm doing this. Okay, this is a religious channel. So I talk about being safe, prepared for God. But we live on this planet. And I don't know how long we're going to be here. The rapture is, of course, imminent. But it's been imminent for 5 years since we saw the Revelation 12 sign. Do we have another year to go? I don't know. Things are building up pretty fast in the Middle East. There is a war on. I'm watching I guess that's a hawk soaring up there in the breeze. I don't know what he's looking for, but they can see all the way down to the ground from that high up. We can't, but they can. God's creatures. So I'm going to focus this one on earthly prepping. You have to survive long enough to be able to tell people about God. If something goes wrong, are you ready? I'm going to look at some basics, and that's what these are, is basics, and these are what I would do. I'm not advising anybody to do anything I would do. But you can take these as things you can Google and find more out about it. But for legal purposes, these are not pieces of instructions on how to survive. These are what I would do. Okay, so let's say there is a natural disaster or an unnatural disaster. Something goes wrong big. Well, the first thing you've got to do in any case, no matter what it is, pray. Before any of this other stuff matters, pray. Get with God. Find out what's going on. He knows all about you and the situation. Nothing surprises him. It's all planned. So get in touch with him. Get your Bible out. Find some favorite verses. Go over those. Get your mindset right. Connect to God. And then keep in mind some of these bits of advice that I do. I've been telling you for at least 2 years to be prepping. Have food stores, have things that you need in case something breaks down. What happens if the power goes out? What happens if you lose water? Maybe you don't have enough food and the markets are empty because somebody said, panic. Now we know they go for bread and milk and toilet paper, but what else? You can find substitutes for a lot of this stuff, but what are you going to do? Now, if you order a case of toilet paper just to be safe, well, make sure you got a place to put it and can afford to do that. If you order, food prep, and you have it delivered, and it says on a big box, survival food, and you leave it outside all day long for the neighbors to see while you're at work, guess what? They know where to come if they need something. Your friendly neighbors. This is the thing that you got to think about. And it doesn't matter whether it's a urban or a country environment. Your friendly neighbors are going to turn unfriendly when they don't have food. There's a Twilight episode that I like to watch. During the 60s, everybody was nuclear crazy. They were expecting the bombs to come dropping. And there's a Twilight Zone episode where the neighbor builds a bomb shelter in his basement. And of course, he tells his friendly neighbors about it. They laugh at him, like they laughed at Noah. But Noah was unreachable. His neighbor wasn't. So his neighbor comes after he sends all of his family because of an alert. It was a false alarm, but we didn't know that. Because of the alert, they all went into the basement. There's food stores, batteries, lights, all kinds. Everything you need to have was down there. But he had a steel door on his concrete bunker. And his neighbors got together and they broke the door in, so it was no longer a safe place. They got inside, they were ready to go to fights, and then they called it off and said this was just a false alarm. The show let you believe that they never talked to their neighbors again. Don't be like that. People are going to be crazy. They've got their own. He brought over his wife and daughter, I think, or something like that. They're looking out for their family. They just didn't believe. And there's going to be a lot of people that don't believe when this stuff starts coming down. Now, the Antichrist is going to be the savior for the world and stop a lot of this stuff. He's not going to do it right away. I don't know how long it's going to take to get to you. But let's say there's a tornado, hurricane, major storm. Something just goes wrong. We've had power outages where a relay tripped. And then it cascaded down and it took out the whole East Coast a few years back. They've got safeguards to stop it now, but you don't know how to plan for something until it happens unless you're smart enough to think of all the things that can go wrong. And there's no way you can think of all those. You just cover the basics. All right. So as I'm looking at this stuff, you can tell people to prep. And that you've got, be sure you tell them, we've got limited stores here. And if you need a couple of things, we can probably help out, but we haven't got enough to handle you and everybody else. You may have a basement full of stuff, but don't tell people, because you're going to be the one that they come to if you let them know you can feed families for months. Now, if you really do have enough to feed families for a month and you can take care of your neighborhood, go for it. But if you can't, be careful. There are organizations like Samaritan's Purse, is that what it is? The Billy Graham Foundation stuff that started up. They travel around the world with planes, trains, and whatever to deliver goods and help people. They have a hospital ship, I think. Whatever, they bring whatever they can in the way of personal aid to people. They're designed to do that. And they get donations to help out. Now, if you want to set yourself up a neighborhood care place, that's fine. The average person can. And if you're in like an apartment, because you're in an urban environment, everybody on that floor is going to be hungry. And you go to the next floor and they're all going to be hungry. If the markets get a run on and there's nothing left but smoked oysters or whatever it is you don't want to eat. Cans of dog food, people can actually eat dog food or cat food to survive, and they have. The elderly used to do that. There's food stamps and things like that now to kind of keep people on the surviving part of things during normal life. But what if everything breaks down? If you have a hurricane and it wipes out power in the whole state, it's going to take them a few days to get that back. There's just not enough manpower. Linemen come in from other states and help out. They get paid. It's a good win for them because they get a lot of money for doing this stuff. But it's going to take a while. So you need to have enough to survive with your family in place for at least 4 or 5 days. Longer if you can afford it and have a place to put it. And don't advertise. So each survival situation is going to require different things to keep in mind. If it's a nuclear attack or just a plain bombing attack, it doesn't have to be nuclear. An EMP attack would knock out power on the country. A nuclear bomb would knock out the proximity. The radiation would go downwind. When can you come out? I'm not going to answer all these things. These are things you need to research. There's plenty, right now, there's plenty of YouTube videos on how to do this. I'm just letting you know that these things are out there that you need to pay attention to. Let's just start with something simple. Let's say the power goes out. What do? You check and see if it's out in the house. Check a few lights. Go upstairs, downstairs, see if it's out. The quickest, easiest way is to look outside, if it's nighttime especially, and see if you see any other lights. If you see other lights on, then it's something localized to you. Go find your breaker and see if it can be reset. If you got an older house and they got fuses, look at your fuses. Pop in a new one if you can. If it breaks immediately or trips again immediately, don't do anything more unless you can get an electrician to look at it. If something's shorting and you got to figure out what it is, or they have to figure it out. If you're capable of doing all this stuff for yourself, do it. But if you're not, get some help. Okay. If it seems to be out in the neighborhood, find your portable radio with batteries, or the wind-up type, which I really don't like because they don't last long and they're cheap. Have batteries, and if you have prepping batteries, storage, long-term storage batteries, they come in two pieces and you put them together and they become a battery. The chemicals are kept separate, so they last a lot longer. Battery has a shelf life. I got someone walking up behind me, so I'm going to go ahead and pause for a second. Okay, he's passed, so back to our survival techniques. So if you have one of those radios, and if you don't, guess what you need? Don't spend a lot of money on them. There's cheap ones. Some of them just emergency broadcast only. It might be better off to have one that has a tunable band so you can see if there's anything else going on. Maybe it hasn't reached an emergency level yet. And they might just say a car ran into a pole, a power pole, or a plane landed on the freeway and it took out pole. You know, you don't know what it is. It could be something big or minor, but you don't know. Find out. If you don't have a portable radio, your car probably does. Don't overuse the battery. And don't turn the lights on and all that other stuff. Just turn it to the accessories section and don't run anything else. You might need that for days, if not weeks. Something's crawling around over there. That must be a squirrel. But so you should have a battery-powered radio, but if you don't, gather up your flashlights. Find all the appropriate batteries that you need. I recommend buying flashlights with the bigger batteries and make all your flashlights the same as far as using that battery, and then get a bunch of those batteries, keeping in mind they don't last, so you can also get the kind you put together that come in that size. This is for prepping. You always should have, if you got a flashlight, you should have at least 2 batteries for every flashlight. Keep the batteries in one spot if you want, but the flashlights need to be in key locations. In a bedroom, you know, in a nightstand drawer or something, so you can find them. You can get a bigger battery and have a carry flashlight, have a big square 6-volt battery, or you can use the 9-volt types. It doesn't matter, just make sure that they will last long enough and that you got a backup plan for that. And don't tell me you just turn the light on and look for them, because you're not going to be able to do that if it's nighttime. Okay, and again, don't overdo resources. They're not going to last forever, and you don't know how long power's out. I use a battery backup unit on a lot of my stuff, but they only have, you know, I get the smaller ones at like 20 minutes. If the power goes out longer than that, I've got time to get to them and shut them down, like my computer. My refrigerator, I've got a battery unit that will run it for 3 days without charge. But I have to charge it during the time that I can. And right now, my AC power unit's broken because it got hit by lightning. I have to use my solar panel. It takes a day to charge it if the sun isn't right directly where I can get to it. and it moves. And if there's trees in the way, it doesn't work. You got to have all this stuff planned out. So get your flashlights, make sure everybody in the house has a flashlight. Tell them don't put it down, keep it where you can get to it. Now power goes out again, we're talking in your house or apartment, you've got food in the refrigerator and probably some in the freezer. Side by side or up and down, doesn't matter. Don't open them. I'm not going to say ever, but don't open them unless you need to see something inside and get it out. Don't go to get a drink out every 20 minutes. If you're going to open it, take 3 or 4 drinks out, set them on the counter, and drink them warm if need be. But don't open that fridge, because you're going to have food spoil sooner than later if you keep opening it. If you're one of these that has to look inside the refrigerator every 15 minutes, open it, take a picture, and close it. You want to look in the refrigerator, look at your camera. These are things you can do that can save you in the long run. Okay, now let's say you're going to cook dinner. Open it, take everything out, put it on the counter, close it. Use everything you took out. Cook it all. If you're going to make eggs, don't open it. Take the eggs out one at a time, put them out, and then put it back in the fridge. No, take the whole carton out, put them on the counter, close the door. Quick as possible, get everything done. Again, the longer that stays open, the more it's going to warm up. And when it gets to a certain temperature, your food's going to spoil. And then you don't want to eat it. Up to a point, you can cook it. But past that, you can't. So our walker is coming back. So I'm going to see which way he turns. And then I think he's turning the corner, so he's not coming this way. Good for him. He's out for a nice walk. Okay. You're going to probably want to cook on your stove, assuming it's gas. If it's electric, it's not going to work. But guess what? Your gas stove has electric lighters, probably. You know, that little click, 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 click. They won't work if there's no power. So have matches and or a lighter handy. If you're going to use matches, be safe with them. Don't light it and then blow it out and throw it in the trash. It'll light your trash on fire. Throw it underneath the water from the sink if the water's still running. Keeping in mind that if the electricity's out big time in the whole area, it might take the electricity down wherever they're processing water. The water's coming to you from a lake. There may be a generator that has to pump it. You may lose water. If something like that major happens, if it's a major disaster, we're going to get to that in a second. Okay, I don't recommend using your stove for heat. People have and can, but they tend to forget about it, and that becomes the problem. Now you can turn it on for a little bit, warm some hands up if they're freezing because you've been inside for a while. But don't just turn it on and let it heat up the room. The gas is not going to kill you because you could turn the oven on and leave the oven on for a long period of time. You could heat certain things up. You know, old timers used to put a rock over in the fire and let the fire outside heat up the rock, and then they take the rock into their bedroll with them to keep warm. There are ways, but everything has a danger if you don't do it right. Okay, well, let's go ahead and focus on water problems. Water has a need more than food. You will die sooner from lack of water than from lack of food. Most of us have enough to ride out a few days of no eating if need be. But water, your body, 90% water runs on it. You've got to have it, so much a day. So make sure you have enough and then ration it if need be. Now what about water sources now? If you've still got water, start filling up containers. Short term, that water will be fine. But don't use any container that's ever contained chemicals. Don't go get a bleach bottle and fill it full of water. Even though you may take 2 or 3 drops of that bleach and put them in your bottled water to give it longevity, you don't do the other way around. Plastic is porous and chemicals get into it, and it will get into your water and you get too much. If you've got a milk jug or a water bottle that you can buy gallon water bottles, you can refill those up to a point. You may have to clean them, run some hot water through them to sterilize them, but you can do that kind of stuff. Learn how to do it. So gather up all the water you can. You can fill your bathtub up. It's like, ew, that's Grandpa's bathtub. Well, get one that everybody can appreciate and fill it up. You may need that. And you can use the water in the bathtub to scoop it out and put it in the toilet so you can flush the toilet. That's the best use of that water. Any water can be treated by boiling it. There are 2 things that can go wrong with water: chemicals, pathogens. Pathogens you can kill. Chemicals have to be filtered with the right kind of filters, and I'm not going to get into that. But you can boil water. You can put chemicals in there that will kill iodine and things like that. But boiling is the simplest, easiest way to fix water if it's only pathogens you're worrying about. If you don't know the source of the water, be careful. You got a stream out back, boil it. If you're right next to a chemical plant, find another source. Our Chattahoochee, for which people like to come out here and fish. I don't recommend eating fish from this lake or the river because Atlanta has a sewage problem. They have a plant in Atlanta that leaks at least once a year. They're fined, I don't know, $1 million or $2 million a year for every time it leaks. And it's cheaper for them to pay that fine than it is to fix the problem. So it's been going on for years. There is sewage in this water here. Now, it may be 10 parts per million. I don't know what the levels of those chemicals would be. I just don't like the fact of doing that. So take care of whatever you're using for water source. Let's go back to our power and our refrigeration. If you've got food, this is the order that you want to use it. Fresh food first. To extend the life of fresh food, cook it. If you've got meat in there that's about ready to go bad, you cook it and put it back in the refrigerator until you're ready to eat it. You can prolong its life by doing that. Hamburger. I've got hamburger in my cooler that's going to go in my chili tomorrow when I start making it. I cooked it a couple of days ago. I had the hamburger with my meal a few days ago, a couple of days ago, I guess. And the other part of it's going to go in the chili. Fresh foods first. I wouldn't worry as much about, lettuce and stuff like that. Meats, eggs, cheese, things like that. Things that will sustain you. Lettuce is rabbit food. If you got a rabbit, keep it in there for that. But make sure you protect the foods that you need. Eggs can last longer outside the refrigeration than inside. But don't go in and empty your refrigerator. Everything that's in there holds the temperature that's in there for a little while. If you empty it out and there's only one steak sitting on the top shelf, it's probably going to go bad faster. You want mass in there to hold that temperature. When in doubt, overcook it. I tell you to have a minimum temperature inside by using a thermometer and make sure that it's hot inside. That's to kill pathogens. If you don't, you can get something from it. You can get salmonella from eggs. If they're ranch fresh eggs, taking right out from under the hen and put in the carton, those are good for a month or so because there's protectants around it. There's a barrier. But once they're washed, that barrier's gone. Washed. It's my mother's maiden name, and there's debates on whether it's wash or wash. But once they're washed, they're good for a limited time, a few days, that's it. Again, you can find all this stuff online. If you have a temperature of some sort, put it in the refrigerator, a thermometer. Put it in there and watch it. I'm not going to give you the numbers, but a refrigerator should operate 30s to 40s. I don't know the range. Obviously, if it's 32, it's freezer time. The freezer can keep things cold until it becomes a refrigerator. So just because it thaws out doesn't mean it's bad, unless it's warm. If it stays at refrigerator temperature, then you can still pull it out and cook it. All these numbers are online. So the freezer's the next thing you want to eat. And then when all that's gone, you go to your dry goods. Rice, beans, canned goods, and finally, prepping food. If you've got prepping food, you go to that last. Stop worrying about convenience. I don't like the taste of that. You don't want to hear any of this stuff. If you don't like the taste of it, go hungry. When you get hungry enough, it's going to taste great. Don't cater to people and give up all your protection, all your stuff, unless you know that the end is very soon. And a lot of times we don't. After a major hurricane, places sometimes don't get power back for weeks because all the line's down for 20 miles. Okay, what about temperature conditions? The Bible says to those that have to flee Jerusalem, pray that it's not in winter or even at night where it's hard to see. Pray that it's not in winter and that you're not nursing a baby. That makes things difficult. Wintertime, it can get cold in Jerusalem or in Israel. Northern Israel has a ski resort, and it has snow much of the year. Not all, but much of it. Make sure you have warm clothing. It would be best if you're in a family environment, in a home or apartment, you put everybody in one room. If you got little kids, they can come in the bedroom, sleep on the floor. If they're really small, they can sleep in the bed, but give everybody their own space, and they'll be happier with that. So maybe a living room, kitchen area, and a bedroom area. But don't close off the doors on the other area. If it's really freezing, you're going to have problems. You might have to go outside and shut the water off if it's going to be a long time, because those pipes are going to freeze. And be careful when you turn it back on. And if you can drain pipes, turn the water on and let it run out until it's gone. If there's drain valves inside or in the basement, drain them out. If it's cold, it's going to freeze. And you can't turn it back on if it's cracked. If it's too hot, you're going to use some of this water. Have towels that you can put in there. If you take a towel or a washcloth, you get it wet, wring it out, and just flip it back and forth. The air going through it will cool it, and then put it on a forehead. I've done that with kids who have a fever. I've done it for myself. That cold will help cool you down there at the back of your neck, in here where your carotid arteries are, any place where you can get blood near the surface, cool it down. It will cool your body down. Now don't do that if it's freezing. You can do the opposite. You can have hot water and use a hot. You ever, as a man, I go get a shave occasionally. Somebody will shave me. They put hot towels on your face. It feels so good. Soften up the beard. Now, if it's cold or hot and you're going to run a generator would potentially run electric heaters. You got to be careful with those. If you're running an air conditioning unit, again, you got to be careful. You got to think about what you're doing. Where's the generator located? All generators will say don't put near an open window or anywhere that smoke from that generator can get into the house. Carbon monoxide kills people all the time. they'll go ahead and put their generator in the garage and not vent the smoke out. Just let it run in the garage. That will find a way into the house, and people have died. If you're going to run an electric heater, don't be neat and tidy and go, I don't want this electrical cord to be seen. I'm going to bury it underneath the carpet. Well, it gets hot, and that carpet is going to keep the heat in, and it's going to get so hot it'll melt. And it can start a fire, and it has. Electric heaters, air conditioners use a lot of power. If you don't have a long extension cord, get one. But get one rated for the power you want to draw through it. The power cord going to my tent is 12-gauge wire. A lot of power cords, you get these green ones you run outside to do your Christmas lights. Yeah, they may be rated for outdoors, but they're not rated for a lot of power. Those lights don't take a lot. Unless, of course, you want to put up one of these Chevy Chase houses with all the stuffed gadgets on it. But you may have to add an extra breaker downstairs in the basement to run it. Just think of all these safety issues. And then have quiet time with the family, because you got nothing to do. Your Game Boy is going to run out of power eventually. You can't get on the internet very much. There may not be internet. Have family meetings. Sit around and sing songs like you would at a campfire. You can put a light down in the living room and pretend it's a campfire. Hopefully it's an LED light that can run for a little while off of a battery. You're not going to plug it in. And have a little campfire. Sing songs, tell stories, pray to God, read the scriptures. Use that time appropriately. We're coming to that. I don't know when it's going to get here, but we're coming to that. It's either going to get here before we leave, or it's going to get here after we leave. So make sure people who are going to be left behind know how to survive too. Have yourself things that you can leave around for the left behind people. Let's see, where have I got these? Somewhere I've got these. Where did I put them? I have these little cards. If I don't carry a tract, I carry these. Is that backwards? It looks backwards. Jesus is the only way to heaven. God is perfect, holy. Who shall stand in the holy place? So, and it's got more on the back. Leave these lying around with the food. Put them so they can't miss them. They may get so mad later on. God will remind them. All right, I'm probably over on time on this, so I'm out here in the country and I know how to do things. I know how to start a fire if I need to. I can do it without anything. I can start a fire. There's other tricks that you can do. I can use my car battery to start a fire. I can use matches if I got them, lighter if I got it. I can strike my knife on a flint rock and put sparks down, start a fire. I can make a bow drill if I want to. Those are hard and you get blisters. Just have the right tools ready and you don't have to deal with all that. Urban people are the ones that are going to have problems. You got more people that aren't godly people. Be safe. I don't know how long, but it can't be very long. Till we meet in the clouds. God bless. Some of the long-term campers here. But look out there, you can see how low the water is. See the green there where there's normally water. That island is connected. All the land that's on the other side of these dark spots is where the water used to be. And one spot over there, I think where that tree is on the end, is a good spot for fishing. Somebody caught 25 crappie there yesterday. And where we first started, somebody caught a big catfish. So there's not as much water. There's probably not as much food as it gets colder. Listen to all those birds.